And now I'd like to introduce our amazing interpreting team, Lingüística, and Emilia, who will be interpreting for us today in Spanish. Me gustaría presentar a nuestra querida Emilia del equipo Lingüística, que nos ayudará a asegurar que esta sesión sea en inglés y en español. Emilia.
Thank you. Hola, muy buenas tardes a todos y bienvenidas a esta junta. Tendremos interpretación simultánea disponible en español. Cuando se ha aprendido la función, si está utilizando una computadora, buscará el icono de un mundo que aparece abajo de su pantalla y los invito a seleccionar español y silenciar el audio original. Pero si usted está por tableta o por teléfono, el proceso será diferente. Buscarán los 3 puntos en su pantalla que digan More o Más. Después deslizarán en el menú de opciones hacia donde dice Interpretación. Seleccionarán una vez más Español. Seleccionarán una vez más Español y una vez más los invito a silenciar el audio original. Cuando han acabado, arriba de la pantalla habrá un botón que diga listo, done o finalizar. Selecciónenlo para poder asegurar que todos los cambios se hayan aceptado. For all of our monolingual English speakers, I also invite you to select an interpretation channel. Once the function has been turned on, if you are using a computer or a desktop, you'll go ahead and look for the globe-like icon that appears at the bottom of your screen, and you'll select English. If you're using a tablet or a cell phone, the process will be different. You'll go into your menu of options where it says More, and then you'll look for where it says Interpretation, and you'll select English. Once you are done, there will be a button at the top of your screen that'll say Done. Go ahead and select that to accept all changes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emilia. And I saw a lot of people continue to join us. Bienvenidos. Welcome, everyone, to PoderArte's information session. My name is Adriana Sanchez Saldivar. I am the Director of Community Organizing here at the Latino Community Foundation, and I am beyond excited to share with you this brand new initiative that builds on the work that LCF does and does well. Art and culture are at the center of everything we do, and now we get to go even deeper and bring along new partners. And so we hope that everybody here today gets all the information that you need, gets excited to submit your application so that we can support the work that you do in our communities that we so desperately need. This is particularly important to me because I consider myself an artist. I am a dancer and I am a person who enjoys everything cultural. So this is just an extension of who we are at the Latino Community Foundation. Many of my colleagues also identify as artists. So you're definitely talking to people who get it. And we shall get started with all the information. Today, we hope to achieve 4 main things. We recognize some of you might be brand new to the Latino Community Foundation. So we'll share a little bit more about who we are and what makes us a very special and unique organization in California. I will tell you more about our request for proposals called PoderArte and what you need to know before you apply. Then we'll walk you through the application and the process of getting a grant submitted and approved. And finally, we'll open it up for frequently asked questions. So if throughout the presentation, things come up and you want an answer, put them in the chat box and we'll make sure to go back to it. Okay, with that, I'm gonna hand it over to one of my phenomenal colleagues to take us through the first section. Ariana.
Hello, everybody. It is so good to see some familiar names, lots of new names that I don't know. So to those who are new, welcome to the Latino Community Foundation. My name is Ariana, and I am the communications lead here at LCF. I want to welcome you all home. It's what we say anytime we welcome new folks into our family, because this is a very special organization. I'm excited to go into a little deeper about what makes us so unique. So our mission is to unleash the civic and economic power of Latinos in California. We do so by investing in Latino-led organizations, increasing political participation of Latinos in California, and building a statewide movement of philanthropic leaders across California. Next slide. Our North Star as an organization is to increase Latino voter turnout to 80% by 2028. We've made some amazing progress in that. And I'm excited to see how PoderArte helps us boost that in the elections to come. Another one of our North Stars is to invest $25 million into Latino-led orgs, entrepreneurs, and Latino leadership across the state. Next slide, Adri. As the only statewide Latino-focused foundation in California, we hold a unique space in the world of philanthropy and policy. And we do so by informing, and LCF informs and influences. We produce research that guides our policy advocacy, our grant-making strategies, and we seek to refocus philanthropy to go beyond the dollar, to see the power of investing in love and healing. LCF's strength is our ability to convene our grassroots partners, philanthropic leaders, and policy decision makers to make connections so that our leaders have the resources that they need to unleash the capital to our communities. To quote LCF Familia member Chef Jose Andres, we are in the business of making longer tables, not higher walls. And most importantly, LCF is an investor. We are in the business of moving dollars out the door, minimizing the prerequisites and the red tape that stand in the way of our grassroots leaders getting the funds that they need to address the issues in the community. We are proud to say that to date we've raised over raised and invested, I'm going to go ahead and pause on that, raised and invested $25 million into over 375 grassroots orgs, predominantly Latino-led orgs across the state. It is a stat that we hold proudly because that at the root is what we are in the business of doing. Next slide. LCF's core values reflect the rich and diverse culture and history of our Latino communities. These values guide our commitment to honor our people, our families, change, not charity, trust, and hope being the three values that are going to guide us on this PoderArte journey together. So I'm excited to see what we can come up and dream up together. Next slide. I'm excited to welcome a lot of new folks to the LCF Familia at this point in time, because this is a point of growth in our organization's history. And with PoderArte, we're moving closer to making those North Stars that I mentioned earlier a reality. Through this initiative, LCF will invest upwards of $2 million in grants as part of our Latino Power Fund. And it's our historic effort to invest in Latino leaders and movement builders across the state. Our PoderArte grants are vital to our Power Fund because we know and believe that art and culture is what moves our people. It connects us to our greater mission of creating a just future that our families deserve. Art is the gateway to civic engagement that moves the needle of democracy towards progress. And I will let our Director of Community Organizing, Adriana, go into more detail about this incredible opportunity and how you can join LCF's legacy. Adri.
Thank you, Ari. And one of the things I love about PoderArte is that it's helping us grow our familia, our family. So far, we've been hyper-focused on the Latino community because that is our mission. But PoderArte is going to give us the opportunity to expand and support organizations that might not be Latino-led, that might not be Latino-serving, but who continue to reach communities that nobody else is serving. So we thank you for everything you do, regardless of being Latino or not. This is for you. And this wouldn't happen without the investment of the California Arts Council. So we're very thankful that they saw us and believed in our capacity to bring this to life. We are one of 14 Creative Corp administering organizations, and the Arts Council has invested $60 million in all of us. This is a one-time investment, but we're so excited to be among other wonderful organizations who are serving regions and the whole state. We are one of the 3 statewide administering orgs, and I invite you to go check out the California Arts Council website. They listed all of the other administering organizations. If this opportunity doesn't fit the work that you do, there might be another organization who has a grant for you. The other thing I want to mention here is you might be wondering if you can apply to more than one Creative Corp grant. And yes, you can. However, we'll be checking to make sure you only receive one grant. So we're talking to the other administering orgs and Arts Council to make sure we're all syncing our efforts and reaching the most people that we can. Thank you so much, California Arts Council. So let's talk PoderArte. PoderArte is a way for us to really center art and culture so we can move towards our North Star, which Adi mentioned, which really means we want to make sure folks are engaged in their community and they're advancing social justice issues, and that they use art and culture to do so. So those are our goals of the initiative, to advance civic engagement, community engagement, and social justice issues. And we recognize that there is a wide range of art forms that could be used to get to that point, right? So whether you do a program that has to do with dancing, one of my passions, I just spent the weekend dancing bachata, or whether it is literature, you love writing poetry and you have a program that teaches young people how to express their emotions through poetry. We want you to think about any and everything that falls within the arts and the cultural realm to bring to life. We believe this is how we lead and how we transform our communities. Art and culture are healing, they're powerful, and they're labors of love. So we bring that all together with PoderArte. PoderArte has 2 grants available for you. So we created this because we thought about who's likely to apply. We've worked with organizations in the past who do amazing programming around art and culture. That's what they do. That's their bread and butter, right? They know and recognize the importance and have been doing it for a long time. So if you have an existing program that has been running for 5 years or longer, I invite you to apply for a program support grant, which will range from 100 to 150. And if you are not in the arts and culture space yet, but you want to pilot something, you have an idea, you want to be innovative, maybe you're a civic engagement nonprofit and you think, if only we had money to do this one project and test it out, this is for you. The project support grant will invest 25 to 50K in single projects. They could be done by any nonprofit, by a collective of artists, and by folks who are interested in testing something that is gonna break the ground. In total, we're looking to give away 25 to 30 grants, and they will be a range of both. You may apply to both grants. If you have an ongoing program, but you also want to test something new, you can submit both applications. However, we will only award one or the other. The other key thing about PoderArte is that most of this money is intended to go directly to the artists and the culture bearers that make this work possible. So at least 72% of the grant has to be allocated to their salaries and fees. And Samantha will talk more about how we're gonna make sure you allocate enough resources for that. We're looking at 3 grant themes. So when you think of your program or your project, they should align with at least one of the following 3, or more than one as well. Narrative change is a key part for us. We want to make sure that we lean into the strength of our communities and we lift that up. You could also use this as an opportunity to educate the community about an important issue you care about. And again, I've mentioned a few times, civic engagement, including participation in the upcoming elections. Now, I want to share with you a couple of examples of projects that we funded in the past. As I mentioned earlier, we've never had an allocated fund for arts and culture, but this has been part of our strategy for years. And so we always find ways to support community projects. In the beginning, if you joined us earlier, we had Las Cafeteras playing. They're a band here in California that integrate Mexican instruments into their music style. Their lyrics are very progressive. And they partner with the Latino Community Foundation in 3 occasions to do PSAs around getting out the vote and getting vaccinated. So just wanted to highlight them because music is part of it. Here you see another example of something we funded. This is a mural that was completed in the Latino, California by Urbanist Collective. And this was just last October, leading up to the elections. We thought it would be great to have an event in that community. They painted this, people could participate. There was a block party, there was a DJ, music, tacos, and kids could come and paint a t-shirt. So it was a community engagement project that used art to move forward this idea that voting is one of our responsibilities, and we get to do it every single year. So this project focused on getting out the vote with a mural. And then another example of something we funded in the past was Sensoteria. Our partners in the North Bay, La Luz, had an idea of what if we educate our community around census with a fun game. And we take a traditional game like Loteria and turn it into Sensoteria. So we invested in that project. They developed a deck of cards, a game that then we were able to share across the state of California to our partners. And this was during COVID. So this was innovative. People held game nights to play and talk about the census and engage community on a very important event that happens every 10 years. Here in the picture, you see US Census Director who actually got to check out the Sensoteria. So along with making sure that we invest in cool projects like this, we want to lift up those projects to policymakers and people to see your brilliance in full display. Now, the money is great. We know that, and we know it's needed. But at LCF, we like to go beyond the dollars. Being part of this and any of our programs means you're coming into a learning community. We recognize your power and brilliance. We recognize that you know best how your community is and what it needs. So you are bringing your knowledge along and we're sharing it with each other. Through the program, selected organizations will participate in 2 capacity building webinars. And then at the end of the year, we will have an in-person convening, which is going to be a very, very fun festival. We hope to showcase some of the projects that are completed, some of the artists that are engaged, and really come together to celebrate each other, because what you're about to do over the next years is going to be amazing, and I can't wait to see it. Now, I hope you're excited, and now you're thinking, what can I actually apply? Is this for me? Well, I hope so. We have 3 requirements to apply. The first one is that you're California-based, as this funding is coming from the state of California, our tax money. 501c3 organizations are who we traditionally fund, and so this initiative is for nonprofit organizations. If you are not yet 501c3, but you're fiscally sponsored by one, then you are also welcome to apply. We want you to use this funding to leverage the power of arts and culture and civic engagement and social change. That is the tagline of PoderArte, so that should be no surprise. And finally, we're looking to fund communities that have historically been underfunded and underserved, but who hold great promise. So we are using the California Healthy Places Index to track what communities have the highest need. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So we're looking for projects and programs that are rooted in communities within the first quartile. This has raised a lot of questions, so we'll go into a little more detail in the next slide. Now, some of you might not be a nonprofit or be working with a nonprofit. If you are a for-profit business or an individual artist, you are not eligible to apply for this project. However, if you're an artist who is partnering up with a nonprofit and want to do a project with them together that's going to serve your community, you're so welcome to apply. All right, let's talk about the California Healthy Places Index. This is a tool that collects a lot of data to help us understand better how California fares up. We have some areas that all this data shows are less healthy due to various factors and more healthy. So if you look at the map of California, you see 4 colors. What we're looking at as a priority is the first quartile. So if your community is dark blue, nothing to worry about, apply. You are definitely one of our priority regions. Now, you might think, I'm not quite in dark blue, I'm somewhat in the light blue, second quartile, should I apply? Well, that's why we want to get to know how rooted and how well you know your community, because we understand that there might be gaps and needs in those communities that this data does not reflect. So if you're working with the unhoused or farm workers or other very vulnerable communities, we want to hear about it and why this project should still get to them, because sometimes those communities are the ones that need the most resources. I want to show you a quick example of how to play with California Health Places Index in case you're not too sure how to locate this. In all of our materials, we show or we provide a link Let me hide the screen. In all of our resources, we provide the link to the Healthy Places Index. So you can access this map by following that link. And on the top left corner, there's a location box. Here you can put everything from your city, your zip code, your census tract, the school that you're closest to. And as an example here, I'm based in Fresno. So Central Valley people in the house, send me a hello in the chat box. And I could just put Fresno, but I decided to put in my zip code because as you will notice, Fresno has all the colors, meaning there's a lot of unequal investments across the city. My county or my zip code is this little square, which is dark blue. So I'm in the first quartile, I go ahead and apply. Now, what if my program serves the border between Clovis and Fresno and has both? I should also apply. So this is just a resource for you to look and learn more about your community. There's a lot more data and factors to look into. If you have questions, if you're not too sure about where you fall within that, or you're not quite in the first quartile, reach out to us. We're happy to dig a little deeper and compare not just how your community looks across compared to the rest of the state, but compare within your county or compare within similar communities. And we might find more information. Okay, so now we get to PoderArte. We have a website. Thank you. My wonderful colleague Andrea learned a lot of things to create this website, so I hope you clicked on it and gone to see all the resources that we have there. I just want to show you quickly what you'll be able to find there. When you arrive at our website, we have some buttons at the top. So everything you will need to apply is here. If you listen to this webinar and think this is a really cool program, somebody else should apply and want to send that to a friend, we have a one-pager that has like the summary of everything we're trying to do. Send that to a friend. If you register, you probably clicked here, and later we're going to be uploading a recording of this webinar as well in English and Spanish, so you can also forward that later to a friend. If you want to read all the details in the request for proposal, it's listed here in English and it's coming in Spanish in a couple of days. The request for proposals is a long document that has all the questions you might have, all the links I mentioned, all the specifics, right? Definitely check that out. The application templates are the resources that will get you ready to submit. So some of the application templates include the budget template that you can use. And then also the narrative form, which my colleague will go into more detail about. And finally, we'll put that in Spanish as well. The grant application, this is the link to our online application that you will submit once you have everything ready, your templates completed, the information that you need, your project or program fleshed out. This is where you finally submit everything. Below it's, again, just a description, everything we're going through today in a summarized version. Okay, so that's what you'll find on our website. Let me go back to my presentation. And now we have a quick little poll for you that my colleague Laura will help us. So now that you've learned about the options that we have here, and you're thinking of applying to a grant, will you apply for project, program, or are you going to go for both and see which one lands? Let us know. We're curious to see where people are landing. Okay, oh, I love this bar. It just keeps shifting back and forth. So far, project seems really popular. Okay. Let's see. Let's give it a few more seconds. So if you haven't answered. Oh, and then we also have it in Spanish, so there might be a different, no, it's the exact same answers. Okay, cool. Okay, so it looks like majority are doing project. Thank you so much for participating. And now I want to hand it over to another one of the wonderful people here at LCF. She makes all of our grants happen. Her name is Samantha, and she's going to walk us through what the application process looks like. Samantha?
Thanks, Adri. Hi, everybody. I'm Samantha Sandoval. I'm the Director of Grant Making and Special Projects at Latino Community Foundation. So excited to have you here today. I'm really excited to talk about the application process with a really hard deadline to apply of March 31st by end of day. So as Adri showed you, please visit the PoderArte website where you'll see all the buttons with all the materials you'll need to submit a full and complete application. The first of which is please carefully review the RFP. This has really critical information and details you'll need to ensure a successful application. You also need to submit several supporting materials with your application. The first of which is a narrative form. So this will be asking you really detailed organizational specific details, such as, your name, where you're serving. Also, we'll be asking for zip codes, right? Which we'll also be using to verify where you fall within the HPI index. We also will ask details around your either project or your program you want to get funded, as well as about 7 to 8 specific detailed questions. The next, we will also need a budget from you. So we provided budget templates, one for both a program level and also one for project level grants. And so this will provide a financial snapshot of your initiatives for us, where you'll list both expenses as well as your revenue. And again, we must emphasize that at least 72% of the requests from LCF must be used for artists' salaries, fees, or stipends. The rest, please use as you see fit. You best know how to finance your initiatives. And if you use a separate budget template, which you can, it must be an Excel form. We also are asking you to submit up to 3 samples of your prior work. You could list these in one Word documents, but if you do, for instance, give us links to a YouTube video or something, if there's a password, please make sure you include the password so we could review all those past prior works. Additionally, if you have a fiscal sponsor, we will need a fully signed letter of agreement. And so this needs to be signed by both the organization applying as well as the fiscal sponsor. So this is pretty important as well if this applies for you. And on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a snapshot of our grant application. And here there will be several fields that will ask you about your organizational information, phone numbers, mailing addresses, some basics. Also here, you could see that we're asking if you're a Latino-based organization. And so typically LCF does prioritize funding Latino-led nonprofits, but for this grant application in particular, that will not be taken in consideration. Everybody's welcome to apply, and that will not be used to evaluate your application moving forward. And there's 3 different tabs. And so we also encourage you to please familiarize yourself with this in advance. And also in addition, you could save your progress and come back to it later with the buttons at the top as indicated. And so you'll go through several different pages. And once you get to the end, after you also uploaded all the supporting information, you'll need to click review and then confirm. And then a new window will pop up saying, thanks for applying. And so that's your indication that everything was submitted successfully to us. Next slide. And so what makes a proposal competitive? So of course, that's going to be something that's clear, concise, and compelling. Also, please ensure that there's really strong evidence of alignments to both the grant themes as well as the overarching PoderArte initiative goals. Also, please ensure you fully complete all the required fields and upload all the required documents as detailed in the RFP. In addition, I know a lot of you have questions around the HPI index and where your community falls. So there are questions in the narrative form that asks about your community. There, we encourage you to please describe them and let us know about them. There might be aspects that the HPI doesn't take into account that you could let us know in that section. You guys are the experts of your own communities. Let us know. Next slide. And so the selection process. So once March 31st hits, we'll be reviewing all the initial applications to ensure that they meet certain criteria and they're all accurate and you've fully completed all the documents required. And once we ensure that, we'll move it to a review committee. So we're going to have a participatory grant-making committee composed of various artists and leaders from all over the regions who are really excited to help us and fund your different initiatives. So they're going to be looking at various factors and taking those into account to determine their scores. And so as those outlined in the slide, but also we're going to be looking at your design. So did you provide an evidence of an established and accessible program? Or is your project demonstrated readiness to implement? Community roots. Are you deeply committed and rooted in the community that you wish to serve? Also, is your work and activities informed and shaped by the voices and the priorities of those local folks? We're also going to be looking at your accessibility. Do you know about and are you aware of and actively addressing various barriers that people might have for full community engagement to experience the art and the culture you're going to provide? We'll also be looking at potential for impact. We want to support really exciting initiatives that will have a high likelihood for success. And so taking those considerations, the top finalists will be presented to our board at the June board meeting. Well, those grants will be approved at that date, and then we will all let you know. Kathy? And I think you're on mute.
Yes, thank you. I could not find the button. I was just looking at the chat box because I see many of you are sending us questions, so thank you. We want to see what questions you have, and we do have some time coming up to go through them. We have plenty of time to answer them. So just to recap where we are on this timeline. PoderArte launched a week ago on Valentine's Day because we wanted to spread the love with arts and culture. We are here talking about it more in depth in this info session, and we hope you submit your applications on time before March 31st, but that is the last day. Do not wait until the last day. There's always little hiccups that come up. We will need a couple of months to turn things around, to do all the review processes that Samantha talked about. And then finally, we will get back to all of you who apply the week of June 20th. Now, we're going to move into the frequently asked questions, or questions that you're sending through the chat box. And here I'm going to ask some of my colleagues who have been compiling the questions to help me out, because I don't want to switch the screen and lose them. If you joined us late and you kind of missed part of the webinar today, we are recording this webinar. It will be uploaded to our website so you can see it afterwards, and we will email it to everybody that registered, including the slides. So you can take a look in more detail later on. Okay, so let's go through some of the questions.
All right, so thank you all for the questions. We're going to backtrack just a little bit. There's lots of questions about the Healthy Place Index. Elida Ledesma, we might be related. What if we serve multiple regions?
Thank you for that question. So when you submit the online application, we have a question of list up to 3 zip codes where your program or project will unfold. So you can submit more than one community that you're serving, and also in your narrative, tell us about it.
Awesome. All right, more on the Healthy Place Index. Carmen Gaines, I know Masha jumped in a little bit, but her question was, just to make sure that we gave the full answer, is that their work is concentrated in San Jose, California. This is an excluded area. Do you suggest we submit an application?
An excluded area? Meaning it's not, is that all they wrote?
Feel free to unmute yourself, Carmen, if you want to go into a little deeper into that.
Hi, yes, thank you for answering my question. So I typed in San Jose on the Healthy Places Index map, and from the quartile, it's, so I guess off the rating that it is had the grayed out line, so it was an excluded.
Awesome, thank you, Carmen. So yeah, there's some areas that are gray or not ranked because there's not enough data on those regions. So even more important that you apply, right? There's definitely gaps that they can't even compile enough information to give us through that map. So tell us about that community. Who are the folks that you're serving, or what is the project gonna tap into that is not currently being served? So yeah, certainly apply. And also another point with San Jose, I know some urban areas like in the Bay Area or San Jose show to be green because there, we know there's high concentrations of wealth, so they kind of skew data. But we also know there's some pockets within those cities and communities that are likely in the darker blue. So with that, you can compare your city to the county versus the state, and it might show different colors, different ratings. So if you have a community that's in the inner city or in a metropolitan area and it's looking pretty dark green, reach out to us so we can maybe dig a little deeper with you, looking at the census tracts, comparing it to the county or comparing it to similar areas. Thank you, Carmen. I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, lots of questions coming in. All right, back to the Healthy Place Index. Selena Martinez Mac. Am I able to apply if I don't physically live in Fresno County? I have been doing my work remotely with 2 orgs for 2 years, no salary, seriously underfunded for financial support. Can I apply for this grant?
Yes, what we're looking at is the community that you're serving. So if you're serving Fresno, which was the example I shared because that's where I'm based, definitely talk to those organizations you're partnering with and submit an application together. Thank you.
Awesome. And then if folks have other questions about the Healthy Place Index, because it is a monster of a website, Adri, is there somebody on our team or the grants email that folks can ask for more clarification?
Yeah, you can email us at grants@latinocf.org about this or anything else that might come in to your mind after we finish this webinar. If we can answer the question for you, and it's something very specific about data or how to use the tool, we can refer you to the HPI team. But again, I want to underline, this is just a way for us to prioritize communities that have a history of underinvestment. It is not a deal breaker if you are not in the first quartile. It's just how we're prioritizing. We want to make sure most of the resources go to communities that are underserved, and that's how we are doing our first scan. If we need to go deeper with you to understand those communities, we're looking forward to reading your narrative where you'll describe those communities.
Absolutely, absolutely. And part of the trust value here at LCF is that we trust that you know the issues that are affecting your community. This is just one source of data. So hearing that narrative and why this funding should go to your community is why we are here. It is why we exist. So please send any specific health stuff questions to that email that Andrea dropped in the chat. Dyslexic, don't know the order of the letters. All right, going into the nitty gritty stuff. Diana Diaz, so nonprofits can participate. Is there a cap on nonprofit operating budgets?
Nonprofits, yes, that is our ideal candidate, a nonprofit. The requirement, the only hard requirement with the budget is 72% to artist salaries. The rest of the funding, you can break down however you see fit. That could be for your overhead and administrative costs, as well as program supplies and anything else that you might need to execute on the project or program.
Awesome. All right, Tamara Johnston, do artist materials have to complete the work count in the 72%?
Can you say that again?
Do artist materials to complete the work count in the 72%?
No, the 72% is exclusive payment for the work the artists and culture bearers will undertake under the project. The remaining 28% of the funds from your budget could be used towards materials and supplies that the artists may need to complete their project.
Awesome. All right, Isaiah B. I'm an artist working on a project for my community. I also run a nonprofit that focuses on recovery in the community. Does the sponsor have to be an arts engagement nonprofit, or does just the project being funded need to be arts-based?
The nonprofit applying or fiscal sponsoring the project doesn't need to necessarily be a culture and art nonprofit. But for fiscal sponsors, we do want to see that they have a history of fiscally sponsoring arts-based projects. So if they've been your fiscal sponsor in the past for another art project, you should be fine, even though that's not what they do on a day-to-day basis. So they don't necessarily need to be an arts-based nonprofit to apply, especially for projects. But to be a fiscal sponsor, we do want to see a history of fiscally sponsoring similar projects.
Awesome. All right. Brianna Calleros, to qualify for the program level support, does the nonprofit have to be an artist or culture organization, or can it be a different kind of organization that also does arts and has sustained program within the last 5 years?
Great question. So our ideal candidate, it's an arts and culture nonprofit that has been working for over 5 years. If your organization in this case has used art and has existing programming for the last 5 years using art, you should totally apply for a program grant.
All right. Ruel, let's see. Do stipends for young people actively working on art projects count towards the 72% requirement?
They're young artists, of course they do.
All right. Let's see. Selena Martinez, what percentage can go to admin/salary for staff and then to the artist?
So we are being very flexible with how you allocate your budget. The only strict requirement is that 72% go to artists, because we want to ensure that we're supporting their work and that we are investing in the creative economy of California. The remaining 28%, you can break down however your program needs to break down. As Samantha said, you know best what the needs of your program are, and you might also have other funding to cover other portions of the project. So I don't want you to limit yourself to a percentage or an amount for administrative and overhead work. That's also very important.
All right, we're going to jump back really quickly to Diana Diaz's question about the budget. She wants to clarify, I mean, is there a cap on the actual nonprofit annual budget? So let's say the nonprofit has to run within less than 1 million, 5 million, 10 million per year.
And Samantha, I know I'm answering a lot of the questions on the specifics of the application, so if you want to jump in on any also, feel free. So with that question, no, your organization can have any budget. We understand some organizations operate at different levels. Some might be more well-resourced, some might be doing things out of the labor of love that they have for their community and for the arts. And so whatever your size is as an organization, it's fine. We do ask in the application to give us your annual budget. So that's just for our tracking of what type of organizations we're funding. Historically, LCF has really invested in grassroots because we recognize that's where philanthropy is failing. So we want to make sure money gets to all of you.
Right. I was hoping we'd get this question. Marcia Quiñones, thank you. Who compromises the decision committee for these proposals?
Who compromises?
Mm-hmm. So like, who is going to decide these proposals? Like who's going to review the proposals?
Oh, gotcha. So we are pulling together a committee right now. It's not finalized. So if anybody in the call is actually maybe not applying and wants to be a reader and help us make the selection, reach out as well. I'm happy to include a few folks because I'm assuming many of you will actually apply and will have plenty to read and help us rank. After the review committee reviews and ranks, our team will consolidate all of their information and finalize the recommendations for our board. And it will be the board of LCF who will have the final approval on the grants. If any of our review committee members might have a conflict of interest, we will assess for that and make sure that they're not engaged in that conflict.
Great. Adrian Chavez, for the program grants, is there a minimum requirement for amount of years of programming needed prior to applying?
Yes, for program grants, we want to see that you at least have 5 years of history working with that program and with that community. So we're looking really at some of the anchor organizations in our communities to support, and those that have a longer history providing programming. So at least 5 years.
All right. Rebecca, thank you for this question. If our organization applies for program support, can we also act as a fiscal sponsor for an artist project?
Yes, you may.
Hannah, thank you for this question. If our org has a grant from the California Arts Council, can we still apply for PoderArte?
You sure can. The only thing to consider here is, okay, so just to underline again, if you have an existing CAC grant or you've applied to other California Arts Council grants, that's totally fine. They're a different entity than we are. So it should not be an issue for you to apply to PoderArte. Now, you can also apply to more grants with the other administering orgs of Creative Corp, but within that program, you can only receive one grant. But that's with the administering organizations that I mentioned earlier.
All right, next question. We are an LLC, but no profit by nature. We decided to go LLC for the media work we do in Central America. Could we apply?
Samantha, do you want to help me with this one?
Yes, no. So only 501c3 organizations or projects that are fiscally sponsored by a 501c3 can apply and be awarded.
Thank you.
All right, we had another question about the Healthy Place Index about Seaside, California. If that's an excluded area, again, like Adri said, go ahead and submit that narrative and we can review together. Alejandra Puente, what is the CPI result? What if the CPI results do not represent the community we serve? Our area is shown as green. Again, y'all are the experts of your community. And if that fancy database is not reporting it correctly, we would love to hear about it. We would love to hear how PoderArte can help your community.
If I can add something here.
Yeah.
So this project of Creative Corp by the California Arts Council, it's a pilot, right? So they're testing it out. They're trying to see if this database is a good resource for this project. And I think hearing from all of you, it's important for us to learn as we execute on this pilot and for us to take back to the California Arts Council and share what we're learning. So definitely submit an application and explain why your community falls out of that HPI index or what is not shown with that data. We want to learn and do better next time with more resources for you.
Absolutely, beautifully said. Mar Medina, can we apply as a 501c3 and be a fiscal sponsor for an individual artist or another nonprofit organization?
Yes, a nonprofit may apply for their own grant and also fiscally sponsored other projects. We've recognized a lot of the communities that we serve don't have sometimes the infrastructure of a lot of nonprofits. So one community organization may be serving as fiscal sponsor to a lot of other projects and organizations that are emerging. So you're totally fine to apply for both and support an emerging group.
Right. Kenny, would it be helpful to already have an artist selected for a project?
Yeah, if you have an artist selected, some of the questions actually ask to give us their website or their social media handle. We want to get hyped and excited with you to know what the project might look like with their engagement and leadership. So that would be awesome. And you can describe more in detail and hopefully co-write with the artist this proposal. And if you don't have an artist in mind, so just an example, right? You want to paint a mural and you haven't quite located the artist. That's also fine. Let us know that you are doing research and talking to people in your community to make sure you bring the right artist on board.
Absolutely. We're going to jump back really quickly to the LLC question. LLC with a fiscal sponsor can apply. I read the contrary, question mark.
So we do have a line that for-profit businesses they should not apply with a fiscal sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
If this is the same person that said their LLC has that structure, but they're not for profit, it still does not qualify because it has a different tax code that we as a foundation can't fund. So it would not apply.
Isaiah B, can the funding go to only a portion of the project?
Yeah, in the budget template, we ask if you have other funding for your project to list them. So potentially, this grant will only fund half of your project or a quarter of your project. That's awesome if you have other secure funding that will cover part of the expenses. So you can let us know in the budget what portion of your project this grant will cover, and it should be totally fine.
Right. Let's see. Ani Rivera, does the 72% of the artist expense need to be in W-2 or can they be consultants as a 1099?
they certainly can be consultants. And I know that that might be a way to tap into a wide range of folks in California that might not be able to work with a W-2. So definitely stipends and 1099 workers, W-2 workers, all of them apply.
All right. What if we are applying for a program grant? Do we still have to allocate 72% to an artist? Alejandra Puente.
Yes, Alejandra, 72% has to go to the artist. We want to make sure they get paid. So that 72% is a requirement for both the program and the project grants.
All right. This is coming from a very special guest in our audience today, Nayeli Martinez. Orgs with an operating budget size of any size can apply. Orgs with an operating budget of any size can apply, question mark.
Yes. Any size of a budget can apply. That is not a requirement for us. And by the way, Nayeli, she's taking some time away from our team, but she's part of the amazing grant making folks here at LCF. So if you apply, you might hear from her in the future. Thank you, Nayeli, for joining us.
All right, double question. Pablo Orozco, we are a nonprofit that works with foster youth and foster parents. We do not currently have any art programming, but would like to implement a program with the funding. Could our nonprofit apply?
Yes, so that is, Pablo, the type of organizations we want to apply for the project level grant. You already serve a community that really needs more resources, and using art and culture to continue to advance your ongoing programming would be a great example of a project grant. So get creative, think about how to engage that community within our grant themes and apply. So for project, your nonprofit doesn't need to be art and culture. They just need to use art and culture in their project.
Beautiful. Ricardo Cortez, are there reports due at the end of the cycle to prove how the funds were used once they are sent? How is the accountability managed? Just thinking about KPIs I'd want to track.
Yes. Oh, we did not add any slides about reporting, and that's great. You know why? Because reporting happens, but we at LCF understand that's a burden to have so much reporting. So we get a little creative in how we report certain things. The webinars that we're going to have throughout the grant term is how we're going to stay in touch with you and kind of hear how things are going. Midway through the grant, we will have a verbal report, which happens as a phone call, as a video call, or maybe we'll go visit you and check in how things are going. So nothing written at that point. We'll take notes and we'll use that as our tracker for process or for progress. At the end of the grant, we do have reporting requirements that will be written. It will include a narrative report that will tell us what were the outcomes of your project or program. What did you achieve? What was the impact? And we also want to know how many artists did you engage through the grant and compensated. So that's an important tracker. And then we want you to showcase something that came out of the project or the program. So if you put together a play, maybe you can send us a link to the video. If you recorded a podcast with you, maybe you can share that with us. So we'll definitely want to see some visual evidence of the project that you completed. And then financially, you'll also have to report against the budget that you submitted. So we want to ensure that you spent the funds in the way they were intended, and that we did get most of those resources to the artists.
Yeah, and we haven't mentioned, it's a 12-month grant term that's going to run July 1st of this year until June 30th of 2024, with the final report due a month after the end date of the grant.
Thank you, Samantha.
Awesome. All right. I know we're running a little short on time, but we are willing to stay on and answer a couple of these questions. If everybody is cool with sticking around, our friends at NBOP, what if our org wants to collaborate with an organization for a project, but that same organization is also applying for the program and project support? Example, collaboration between two orgs who might be applying for different fund levels, program versus project. Example, would we be able to apply as a program application or separately as one program project? Thanks, friends.
Awesome. Yeah, so one of the questions we have on the application is if you're applying as a coalition. So if you're partnering up with another nonprofit, another org, and it's multiple parties engaging in this project, you can totally apply and let us know in that question how that configuration will be. Now, in this case, it looks like one group is applying for a project support, and then they're partnering up with another organization for a different proposal. That's allowed. The difference would be that there's different lead organizations, right? So if you're partnering up with the other organization, they would be the lead on the coalition, and then your project support, you would be the lead. Yeah, so maybe we can take a couple more questions. I know we had scheduled this for an hour, but I'm okay staying a little longer.
All right, a couple questions came in about reviewing applications. Ricardo and, let me get the name correctly, Marcia Quiñones are down to help us review applications. Adri, what should folks do if they want to join this committee?
Oh, okay. We love helpers and we love engaging community. If you did like that call to join our review committee, send me an email. Send it to the grants@latinocf.org. It'll get to me. And let me know that you're interested and why you would like to join that committee. I'm putting together right now the timeline for that process and the resources for our committee members. So perfect timing. Send me that before the end of this week if you're interested. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. And I know we probably missed some questions in the flurry of the chat. So again, feel free to email grants@latinocf.org. But I think we've got two questions from Xochitl and Catalina that are around the same topic. How do we define artists for the purpose of this grant? Let's see. Do they need to have past professional training or job experience as an artist to be included as an artist for the proposed activities? Adri, who is an artist in many forms, checks numerous boxes, is going to go into a little more detail about what that means.
Yes. So in our frequently asked questions, we have specifically this question. We also don't want to box anybody in to a specific definition. So sometimes we interchange culture bearer and artist as an umbrella term. So I want to just, hold on. I want to read through that definition together. And I don't know how to escape. Here we go. So that way I don't miss all the keywords. We actually borrowed this definition from another administering organization. I think it was Center for Cultural Power. So the first question, very important. So anything that falls within art and culture. So if somebody is teaching a traditional cultural practice from another country to a new generation, we consider them an artist because they're bringing to life something beautiful and unique into our community. It could be somebody that educates within traditional knowledge or cultural practices, somebody that offers cultural resources to their communities, and that co-organizes and co-creates to have a social impact. And so it's not limited. We listed in the application a couple of creative practices or cultural practices, artistic forms such as dance, music, culture, tradition, theater, visual arts. But it is not exclusive. You know, we know the beautiful thing about being an artist is that you are creating something new. You are developing a whole new practice. You are bringing to life something that maybe has not existed before. So it's really, artist is anybody that self-identifies as one. I don't know if anybody wants to add something, but yeah, it's open-ended. I don't want to put you in a box and say to be an artist, you have to have gone to art school, no, because many of the folks in our communities actually have learned by doing, have learned from elders, have, self-taught themselves. So that makes you an artist too. There's no formal training or experience that we're looking for people to call themselves artists.
I think that sums it up beautifully, Adri. That was the last of our questions. So I'm going to go ahead and toss it to you.
Raul Arciga, you have your hand up. Before I conclude, did you want to share something? Raul.
Can you guys hear me now? I'm sorry, I'm driving right now to a meeting. But yes, I was going to ask if we wanted to schedule like a conference call with you guys at the foundation. Is there a number that we can call or communicate or a person of contact? I would like to kind of have a private discussion from our chats if that's possible.
So we're not sure if we can accommodate all the requests for one-on-one meetings. I would encourage you to send us an email to grants@LatinoCF with your question. And then if it's something that we can't tackle by email, then we can maybe jump on the phone and have like a quick check-in. But we have a bit of a limited staff capacity. So we're trying to be as expedient as we can. And hopefully we'll get to hear more about your project.
Perfect. Yes, because I also have like a visual that I like to present. Besides from the app, I want to kind of like send you guys like an audio or like visuals about the project. So that's why I wanted to kind of have that discussion with you guys, if you guys will accept those formats as well.
Yeah, and Samantha mentioned one of the supporting documents is examples of prior work or renditions of work that you're planning to do. So you can add pictures there or hyperlink to documents or media that we can check out during the application process.
Thank you, Adriana, and everyone for all your help. Appreciate you.
Thank you. And then I'm going to take Georgia's question since her hand's up, and then that's going to be the last one. Georgia?
Hi, thank you all so much for this great webinar or info session. It's super helpful. My question is actually about the samples that can be submitted. Can only 3 samples, like 3 URLs or 3 images, be submitted, or can it be up to 3 pages of samples that can be submitted?
Wow. So we are looking to give you the less amount of work possible with this application. So we thought, maybe with 3, you can show us a range of what you work with or what you're doing. If you want to submit more than 3, by all means, we might only have time to review 3. But if you have prepared some other submission that has a longer list, feel free to send us that. Samantha?
Yeah, and if it's, 3 pages of the same work, that counts as one source of work. And you could still have 2 additional samples to also send.
Okay, perfect. And then I'm sorry, one more question about the 72% for artist fees. I'm assuming all those fees need to be incurred after the grant award date, or can the fees go towards fees that have been incurred as of January 2023?
The start date is July 1st. So it could only have expenses within the grant duration of July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024.
Okay. And then final question is, if we do virtual programming, how do we indicate the zip codes we serve if we serve multiple zip codes through virtual programs?
Yeah, where are the majority of your virtual participants coming from? I would look into that. And if there's certain communities that you outreach or market the programming to, those would be your priority regions to highlight.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much.
As well, you can also, kind of select your top 2 zip codes and then say and plus statewide.
Okay, great. Thank you all so much. This has been extremely helpful.
Thank you, Georgia. Oh, I saw another hand. Okay, Khalil, let's do it. What's your question?
Thank you. I'll be quick. Yeah, I just want to clarify. I feel like I heard this, but I wasn't sure. So if the 72% that goes towards artists, can that include like staff that are like narrative strategists or like digital strategists or organizers doing like narrative and culture work within the organization, or would that just strictly be for like artists that are not necessarily on staff, but come in to support the program or project doing their artistry?
Yeah, every organization has in-house artists, such as, digital storytellers, or in this case, you mentioned narrative strategists, like that would count as artists to be listed in the 72%. But also, if you're engaging external vendors or participants of that program who are just completing like one portion of the project, you can list them as well. Okay, I hope that answered the question. We've come to the end. I just, before we log off, want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us, for being part of this webinar, and for asking all those questions. I think it shows us where we need to be more clear or explicit. I want to say thank you to Emilia from Linguistica for helping us make sure that our Spanish speakers are listening in and applying. They can submit their application in Spanish if they want to, and we will have bilingual readers who will review in the original language. Language access and language justice is just as important, and it's a type of art for us. So thank you, Emilia and Linguistica. And thank you to the LCF team, everybody that has made today possible, my co-presenters, Ariana and Samantha, Laura, who was behind the scenes on Zoom, Andrea, who was helping us record parts of the Spanish portion, and the rest of our team who is here or who will watch this later. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.